Good news. I have my next hairball to get back to the earth. That's not really the good news. The good news is that I feel like I'm through the worst of this stuff I've been processing since I don't even know what day. It's been a blur. It's been hard to keep track of time, and I've managed to still function mostly. But today I feel like, oh, I can get organized, I can do stuff, I can reply to emails, I can communicate. Whereas, so last night I didn't have any heart palpitation thing, I didn't have any bad dreams. I feel like that thing that happens, that cycle, the pattern where there's the scary heart palpitation, and last time that really happened was when I was in California and I took Seroquel. This time it happened, I took lipospheric vitamin C, and I might have taken 2 more amino acid caps of hearty nutritionals, and then I went back to sleep. And then the next night I had the bad dream thing where I feel like I'm half asleep, half awake. It's really happening. It's really terrifying. That's happened to me when I've been in so-called psychosis and in the psych ward. But this time it happened, I wasn't in the psych ward, I was sleeping. So I feel like all the same sort of things happened as in a major crisis that has in the past been PTSD or major psychosis episode, but it was a lot more subtle. Like I could get through it without medicating myself. And I took it day by day. And I also got through it not by hiding symptoms of an illness, but going with the challenge moment by moment and not turning it into, I can't meet this challenge, so I'm going to say I'm experiencing symptoms of my mental illness, which I don't believe in. I got a phone call, but anyways, I felt like I got so disconnected. I went so far into creation and beauty that I was literally there in a world by myself. I was envisioning and creating a world that doesn't exist yet, not even for myself. So in that way, I feel like it pulls my being and experience into something that doesn't exist. And then comes the question of existence versus non-existence, and who exists where, and what's me and what's not, and so many things. It's so weird. I don't know. It's weird. And it's part of the creative process. And also what happens is when I or someone goes into almost a level of reality that doesn't yet exist because we're attempting to create it and envision it and move into it, the further we move into it, the further we're on a different frequency of the totality of eternity, of everything now. And the people in my reality almost become impossible to communicate with. So all of a sudden I'm on FM station when they're on AM, and we can't communicate. It's a different frequency altogether. So when that happens, eventually I'm going to be pulled back into the consensus level around me. And so in order to pull me back, I need to communicate with people. And oftentimes I'm so far gone, and I did dissociate a little, I feel, because I did feel like a homeless person alone by myself, which can then make me feel, as a result of that, I can feel like my family's not my family, or my family doesn't exist, or I don't have a family, or they don't exist and I'm the only one that exists, which could be the aloneness feeling of feeling like a homeless person or being a homeless person. It's really intertwined. So I had that, which I've had before, but usually when I have that to an extreme, I'm literally sitting outside my apartment or my suite, outside the front door, shivering, freezing cold, embodying a homeless person, embodying someone that's alone, that doesn't have any relationships, which can happen at the end of creativity, at the frontier of what is actual. So one goes off into those possible frequencies and sort of throws out those possibilities and is moving into them. But eventually, what is probable because of one's circumstances does come back to swallow one up. And it's not a problem per se, it's just how it is. And I feel like it's possible I was able to navigate that without turning myself into someone with a mental illness, because I felt like a homeless person for a couple days on and off. And it was very challenging. It was so complex. Like each way I looked, I felt different and I wasn't sure about anything. But again, I didn't say, I'm so confused, because it was manageable. It wasn't so unmanageable. There was body pain at times. There was something that might feel like panic attack or anxiety. But I was really with the energies and seeing the stories that were made out of those moment to moment. And if I would have said some of those things, I say a lot of things. I say insights that are maybe true, maybe not. And even though I've made up a lot of that stuff and said it to myself, I don't believe it. So I think that practice of not believing it and dropping it came in handy during this process where there's some thoughts and ideas and wonderings about the world that were scary, and that if they are possible, I wouldn't want them to be possible. So there's this fear, and there's this bad, and there's this punishment. So it's reward and punishment coming back online, because creativity has nothing to do with that. So it's just like if somebody goes and gets high on ecstasy or something, they're going to feel like crap for days. And I remember there's something called Suicide Tuesday, because you feel so bad that you felt so good. You went off into ecstasy and wonderment and all this wonderful feeling. And then there's a contraction. It's the same thing when that process gets activated innately without taking any kind of exogenous chemicals like ecstasy or LSD. I'm not saying I've done those per se, but I'm saying that I was able to navigate that without taking any psychopharmaceutical, and it might not be over. And even though last time I had a crisis and my family helped me in January, I feel like they helped me by bringing me a little bit of food and just letting me rest. I feel like they helped me this time without knowing it. I never said, oh, I'm in distress, I'm dissociated, or I'm feeling confused, or maybe my symptoms are coming back. I didn't say anything like that, though there was some very strange sensations. They were able to help me by kind of just having regular family drama. So instead of it being translated into I'm the person with the problem and I'm the person with the mental illness and I'm just going to say things that are confused and random and they're going to look at me like, oh, we got to ship her off to the hospital, I was able to stay with all these strange feelings and these awful feelings. And my family, some members communicated with me some things that they were unhappy with or whatever, regular family drama, and I listened and communicated back, and that process made me feel more like me. So the family drama was a blessing in disguise, because I was feeling sort of like homeless, and do I have family, and are they me or are they them, or what's going on, which can be all the sort of things that can happen where people can feel like my family's not even my family, they're imposters or something, which I have had in the past. But I was able to stay with the uneasiness, and I think there's a perspective called Solipsism or something, where from that perspective one believes one is the only person in the world or something. And I think that might come from omnipresence or something. There is an underlying self that we all share, a consciousness. And something that I realized in the shower today was that there is no such thing as objectivity. And that's what I've experienced these last days, is that how I felt energetically inside is how people reacted to me. And we kind of know this, but it felt very obvious. It didn't feel like, oh, that's something I can ignore and think about later. I could feel it as it was happening. And then it makes it more challenging because one can feel sort of guilty, like, oh, I messed up. I didn't do that as good as I could have, which is the ego. So it was a mechanism. It's kind of an elegant design of this mechanism to have the ego come back online in a healthy-ish way. I don't know, to go too far off into non-selfhood around people that expect me to have a self and ego. I could have been a certain way, like, I'm creating something, get out of here, and then that actually leads to more grandiosity. But it felt sort of like humility in a way to be in that creative state for that period of time. It was weeks, and then go too far into it, it seems, which felt like everything is one, which felt like now I'm alone and I'm homeless and there's no one except for me. But it's not. That's the thing. There's one self, one consciousness, which at the end of seeing all of that, going too far into that, and we get to a place where we don't want to know how it works. So when that happens, I had this sense of, she knows too much, which, conspiracy stories can come back online. But if one can get through those stories, there is a mechanism that helps the ego recoalesce from its scrambled state in order to allow the being to continue to walk out on the path that they partly were creating something to move into in the possible future. So it goes from reason, and that's the thing too, in these weird states that I've been experiencing the last 10 days, there's this thing about causality. Am I the cause? Are they the cause? Is there a they? Is there only one? Is there many? And when one feels so one, at the end of it, it can translate to grandiosity. But I'm seeing now that usually for me, that translates to I'm all alone as a homeless person. And that's what reattaches me to my ego, this translating to a homeless person, because I usually don't translate it to a grandiosity thing, as in it's all about me and I'm the best. It goes to the opposite. It goes to the end, like, look what I did, it's awful, I'm homeless, I deserve this, these guilty shame stories that come online to bring the level of consciousness. It's like once one gets to the top, I don't even know what that means, there's this bottoming out. Same as if one does a drug to get high. There's a high and then eventually it bottoms out and there's an equal and opposite low. So creating too far ahead of everyone else, in quotes, like, I'm still not convinced that there isn't everyone else, or what the heck. And that's why I said there's no thing as objectivity. It's subjective. It is participatory. Like they're saying in the book, The Possibility Principle. It's possibilities. It's participatory. There's so many things here. I'm just feeling really grateful that it feels like I got through that. Usually my process is 3 days are really hard and then I end up in the psych ward for 10 days. And then I'm out and then I'm okay after they take me off the antipsychotics. If they keep me on it, it's not good. And then I managed to do that myself in January. A couple days that were really bad, took antipsychotics for 2 weeks, then I'm back to myself. So if I do 3 days of awfulness before having to medicate myself, then, or not even really any, one time it came without any warning and I just had that heart palpitation, scary, and then medicated myself. So this time, heart palpitation, scary, didn't medicate myself. Number of days really scary. What I'm trying to say is the scary days plus the days that I usually take antipsychotics, maximum 17 days. Average, probably 12 days, I would say. So I don't know exactly when this started, but I'm saying it might have been about 12 days. So if that's the time it takes, I think I've gone through it without medicating myself.